What is going on, guys? So I have an amazing guest today, Kerry Barrett. I'm going to have her introduce herself in a couple of seconds. But the topic of conversation today is what happens when you are starting with a minimal or zero online presence. We all have to start somewhere when it comes to growing our business online. And I thought Kerry has the background and the expertise to really shed some really awesome insight on this. So without further ado, I want to introduce Kerry Barrett. Kerry, explain to everybody, your background and your backstory. So going forward, they know why we should be paying attention to this conversation today.
Sure. Thank you for having me on, by the way.
Absolutely.
I'm in a new office building and I'm holding up my laptop by hand so that I can have good lighting.
Your biceps are going to be cranking by the end of this.
Well, that's really the only reason I'm doing it. It's pure vanity. No, I could use the workout. I put on the COVID-19. So my name, maybe more. Kerry Barrett is my name. I was in the TV news business for 20 years. I was an anchor, a reporter, a producer, Emmy Award winning, if I can toot my own horn a little bit. I was most recently at WNBC in New York City, where I was a breaking news anchor on both the morning and evening shows. I did a lot of reporting, a lot of big international stories, politics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But about a year ago, I decided for a number of reasons that the news business was no longer where I wanted to be. And maybe it didn't want me there either. I was ready to go. And so I started my own business. I am a media trainer, an an on-camera readiness coach, and a public speaking coach. And that veers off into a couple of little, I do brand storytelling and I help people craft their video messages, their video presence. But in, today's day and age, we're all stuck inside. Everything is via Zoom. And so everybody that, didn't have an on-camera career prior now has one, whether they like it or not. And so I have found there's a great need for not just video presence, but online presence as well.
Awesome. So guys, stick around, pay attention to what Kerry's about to drop for us because it's very, very important. So we got to start with question number one. And it's, where do I start to develop my online presence?
Yeah, well, it's so important. I mean, and it applies to my clients in a number of different ways. So I'll give you a couple of examples and then I'll talk about why they're important. I have people who come to me for media training, and it's because they're experts in their field. They're great at being a financial analyst. They are in the real estate industry. They're educators, doctors, whatever the case may be, lawyers, and they want to be a contributor on a network or a local news station. And the first thing I do is I say, well, let's go look at your social media accounts, because I can tell you this. If you don't have a presence there, it doesn't matter how great you say you are. It doesn't matter what your bio says. Any producer worth his or her salt, and that's all of them, is going to immediately go to your social media if they haven't heard you before. And if they don't see somebody on there to whom they already assign credibility, another expert in your industry, a producer that they know, forget it. It's over. They're not going to take a risk on you. And so establishing that social media and that online presence is very important for credibility. It also means that, my God, YouTube is the second largest search engine right now, and it's attached to Google. And if you can't go onto YouTube and do a search for your name or your business and find some sort of content, forget it. It's now at the stage where people and consumers, when they look at something, they research something, they're going for video and online. If you don't have something there, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
You must. And so where do you start? I mean, it's bite-sized chunks, and it depends on how savvy you are with social media as to where you start and how you begin. But putting out small snippets of online content, usually video, because that's where it's at. Video gets 12 times more share, I think, than standard pictures and text. So if you're looking to make a big impact with relatively little effort, I'm talking you're shooting a 15 to 60-second video on your phone, and that's what you're starting with. And you're posting it to LinkedIn and you're posting it to Instagram. Instagram, I think, is more of a brand awareness sort of platform. And it depends a little bit on your business and your clientele. LinkedIn is where you go to try and reach some of the heavy hitters.
Okay, I love it.
Make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The next question is, well, what should they be putting out there? I get a lot of questions like, what is too personal?
Yeah.
How vulnerable do I go? Do I
Right.
go vulnerable at all? What types of content do I put out? Very, valid questions for somebody that's either starting out or has a little bit of momentum and wants to turn up the game a little bit.
Turn it up. Well, and that's the thing. I think people get a sense that video is a little bit intimidating, and it's intimidating for a number of reasons. It's intimidating because if you put it out there and it sucks, doesn't matter where you delete it, it's still there somewhere. It's like I liken and I use the analogy of the red tally light going on, because I sat in front of cameras in a news studio for a very long time, and that red light goes on and you're on, and it's like everything is fine until that red light goes on, and then it's like you're driving in a car and suddenly the car in front of you stops short, and you stop short, and the adrenaline starts to flow, and you start to shake, and you don't know which end is up, and what you had comprised to say is cattywampus, and it's not coming out the way that you wanted it to. And so I get it. It is intimidating, but here's the thing: you do need to be vulnerable. I to a point, right? If you don't know who your audience is, you need to make sure that you trust them and they trust you. But being authentic is key. What that means for you and how you calibrate that for your different audiences. I mean, I'm not going to say go out there and show the world everything. That's not authenticity necessarily, but you have to do what you're comfortable with. And so does it mean thought leadership pieces? Maybe it does. Maybe it means, a minute or 2 minutes on LinkedIn about your name or your brand or what it is that you do. If you don't have a lot of clientele, releasing those thought leadership pieces that shows your credibility and your authority in your field is a great way to build up some name recognition. But I always say, I post on LinkedIn every day. We've had this conversation before. Like, I'm all over LinkedIn, you're all over Instagram, and you have a lot of followers, by the way. But you haven't followed me yet. I'm just saying.
Call out.
What's that all about? Source crap. But I would suggest trying to post on LinkedIn at least 3 times a week when you're starting. And I like to keep my video very simple. And the reason that I keep it simple is because I'm a one-man band right now, which means I do it all. And I don't have a lot of time to do fancy editing. And you don't need to either. Like that kind of raw video, that feel of I'm just shooting it into my phone and then I'm putting it up for the world to see. It has kind of an intimate feel. And I think right now, especially, people can get a little put off if they think your video is overly slick, overly produced, a little too salesy. And so I like to shoot a one-take video into my phone and boom, up it goes. And sometimes I know exactly what it is that I'm going to talk about. And sometimes I have no freaking idea what's going to come out of my mouth, but I can do that because I've done this for so long. Yeah. Sometimes it's not great. Yeah. But if you're new to this, you need to be very strategic about what that message is. And I like to create a calendar, really, where each month has themes. And Monday, I release this kind of content. And Tuesday, I release this kind of content as it relates to the theme. And, it depends on what platforms you're on and where your clientele is as to how often you release. But I aim for LinkedIn 3 times a week. If you're new, Instagram at least 3 times a week. I like to do every day. And Facebook once a week as well, or excuse me, once a day.
That's good. So I want to get into, it sounds like you're a planner, and I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not. I can just fake it really well.
Oh my God. So, all right. So let's talk about planning for a second, because I think this is something that helped me, I would say recently, really strengthen my content. I was starting out once, just like you guys, and my content was all over the place, And people were like going to my wife saying like, what's your husband all about? Like, what's he trying to be, like a motivational speaker now? Like, it was the messaging was so far off.
Right.
And this wasn't too long ago. This was a couple of years ago.
What did your wife tell him you were?
Well, she was like, I don't know what he's doing on social media because I don't follow him. Right. I don't. Right. So, but then when things started to tighten up and I started to get really clear with who I wanted to serve, we were talking about this offline. I got clear with who I wanted to serve. I got my price point right. And I got my content straightened out. Yeah. We had a record-breaking month this year. So the question I have for you is, I know a lot of people get stumped with the, what do I post? And, having some sort of preparation around that, I think, is very, very important. So you said you have themed out months. What does that look like on a little bit more of a granular scale?
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, COVID has thrown everything for a loop. I had months planned out where I was going to talk about behind the scenes at the news stations and what that looked like, and just interesting kind of, throwback stuff to my career as a broadcaster. And then I was going to talk about risk, and I was going to talk about conquering fear. And to some degree, those are relevant, but given everything that's going on in the world right now, I decided to table those items and talk a little bit more about A, what's going on in the world right now, and B, how my skills can help people who are dealing with the fallout, right? We talked a little bit at the top of this podcast about people are on camera when they didn't want to be. And so I switched up my routine, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start releasing a lot of video tips. So how do you set up your Zoom shot? How do you make sure your lighting is good? I released something on LinkedIn the other day because I know the lighting in my home office has changed since the leaves popped. The tone of the light has changed. It's way more filtered. And so how do I compensate for that with artificial lighting? And there's a whole bunch of details that make your video really pop. And some of them seem like they're mostly about aesthetics, but they're all aesthetics with a purpose. And unless you know what they are and how to spot what is throwing off your image or your shot, you don't know what to fix. And so I changed that up, and I just released video tips, tricks, and strategies. That's what I've been doing for the past 2 months. And also events that I'm hosting that people might find helpful. So it's a webinar on video presentation, or how to maintain your energy when you are on the 900th Zoom call of the day, and you want to just like all you do is want to down a bottle of wine. I mean, not that I do that, but you get what I'm going for.
I love it.
And so that's how I've changed up my tactics as we're going through this. Now, when we're through this, I don't know when that will be, but I'll go back to my social media calendar, which will talk about things that I've learned. They're more thought leadership ideas. How have I conquered fear? I mean, I used to be terrified of public speaking. Terrified.
Really?
Bull. Like, if you talk to anybody who I went to high school with, they will tell you being a news anchor on camera in front of, I don't know how many, potentially millions of people, last thing that they would have ever dreamt that I would have done. I mean, I was the one who was curled up in the back of the room in a puddle, probably of my own vomit, maybe in the fetal position, certainly crying. And how did I conquer that fear? And so there's stories about how I have navigated this competitive field and used my fear to motivate me instead. So that's one of them, taking risk.
I want to dive into that, because I think that's a really good segue. You're throwing me alley-oops this whole conversation. Let's talk about fear for a second, because I know that there's a lot of folks. So I have a client that I'm working with right now who it takes him an hour to do a 60-second Instagram video.
And he still hates it, right?
And he still hates it. Yeah. So, and there's this fear of, and he was very vocal with me. He said, I am afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of what people are going to think of this content. Yeah. And so I would love for you to share a story, if you could, about one of your fears and how you were able to overcome it when it comes to this stuff.
Well, it was interesting, because when I first started out in the news business 20 years ago, there really was no social media. I mean, honestly, email was just kind of becoming a thing. And now it's a whole different ball game. I mean, listen, if your viewers don't like what you're wearing, and they don't like what you said, or they thought your commentary was slightly biased, they're going to let you know, and they're going to let you know in droves. And they are going to be, there's going to be no bones about it. You're going to know exactly what they think of you. And that's really tough. I'll be honest with you. I never developed my skin is just never got thick enough in the news business. I still was affected by that kind of stuff. Here's the key, and I'll tell you, because I still hate looking at myself on video. I cannot stand watching something back. And
why?
I hate it. I hate it. I'm like everybody else. That's why. Here's the key. I've gotten comfortable with my own self-loathing. I'm not even kidding you. That's what it is. And I mean, I jest a little bit, but here's the thing. No, what you have to remember is that nobody is holding you to the standards of appearance, voice, any of that stuff that we all cringe when we look at ourselves in a video or we hear ourselves on a podcast or whatever. Nobody is holding you to the standards that you are holding yourself to in terms of those things. And if they do, screw them. And here's the thing. When you heard your voice back for the first time and you were like, holy crap, is that what I sound like? That's not what I sound like. That's awful. There's not that cognitive dissonance with your audience, meaning that you don't sound weird to them. That's just what you sound like. And they've already accepted it. And so while I still hate watching myself and listening to myself, I realize that hopefully most of my audience doesn't feel that way about me. And they actually find something useful in what I'm saying. And that's how I push through. I just realized that what I was saying had some value, no matter how I felt about the person, me, delivering the words. And I just practiced. I practiced. I had to practice in the news business. I was on air for, 6 hours of live TV a day. I didn't have a choice. And that's the key. You start to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, and then eventually you just don't care anymore.
Yeah, it's so important that you mentioned the word practice and repetition and things like that. I got to tell you, I'm with you. I had a very hard time rewatching videos and things with me in it. Because I felt like it was done already. It was a little bit different. I wasn't scared of, or I wasn't like, oh God, I'm mortified of hearing me and seeing me on screen. It was more like, I went through that already. Why would I want to rewatch it? Because like I have other things that I need to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. But then what my coach was like, he said to me one day, you're going to pick up on nuances, right? You're going to pick up on patterns that you don't catch. And so I was like, you know what? Well, the only way I'm going to get better with video is if I critique myself. And there was a few things that I noticed. One was I used the word so 100 times.
So let me tell you about this.
Right. And I picked up on that and I was like, wow, that word's got to come out because not everybody wants to hear that 300 times in a 10-minute video. So I almost said it again.
Oh my God, yes. I said it again. You swallowed it though. High five.
Right. I almost did it again. The point that I'm trying to make is when you take the time to watch yourself back, that's the way you get better. I wish there was another way, I mean, you can hire Kerry and Kerry could critique your videos, right? Or you could do a little bit of your own work and just rewatch some of the stuff that you're putting out.
You should hire me. Let's be
definitely. I mean, listen, if you want to fast track, and I'm being honest here and totally serious. If you want to fast track your way to building an online presence that's really going to look credible, reputable, authoritative, and you're going to come out looking sharp, I highly recommend you hire Kerry because this is the woman who has the experience. And that's her specialty. That's her specialty.
I think where people get tripped up is they get very caught up in one of the things they get tripped on is they get caught up in trying to be perfect. And I get it. We all want to make sure that we look great, sound great, and what we're saying highlights our expertise and our knowledge. All of those things are very important. But that's not the only thing that makes great video. It also has to do with how you deliver it and your energy and your ability to know how to navigate a camera and how to engage in what seems like it is a genuine conversation in this case, obviously, a genuine conversation with somebody through a lens. And all of those things are very important. But unless you know what the answers are to all of those questions, absolutely, you can pick out if you say so or or ah. And I notice those things about myself still to this day. Nobody's perfect, but is this the right thing to do? Or is that the right thing to do? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, not only just your shot setup, but who your audience is and who you're targeting and how do you make this effective? And I can walk you through that because I know how to do that. That's what I do. People don't have the answers necessarily inside. They know if their hair looks like crap that day, but.
I just want to shed one more light and then we got to wrap up because I have to prep for another call. But the art of knowing who your customer is or your audience is and making sure that you're putting out relevant content that's going to engage them. I got to tell you, I'm watching the viewership on this live and I'm seeing it's going up and down, but we're getting quite a bit of viewership here. And there's a few things that I think attribute to that. And I think it's relevancy. So where do you get your content ideas from?
Boy, that's a good one. I take one day a month and I just sit down and I plot out all the different things that I'm doing that month and that I want to talk about. Like I said, the past couple of months have been different than usual. I've put out far more tips and tricks and strategy than I normally would, but I know people find them useful. And then one of the things that I do that I think is far too many people overlook it is I ask my audience. I ask them, and it's a different audience on Instagram than it is on Facebook, than it is on LinkedIn. If I find the solopreneur on Facebook, I find the executive on LinkedIn. And I mean, I'm painting with a little bit of a broad brush. There's some crossovers certainly, but I ask on each platform, what do you find helpful? What do you want to see from me? What questions do you have? And then if it's something I can answer in a video or something that I can incorporate into a live Q&A session, I do. And those are the things that people have asked. That's what they want to see. And then that's how I try and plot out. And then I use what I know to try and map out the rest of the month.
I love it. I'm highlighting people's comments as they're coming in. And people are saying learning, and Sid Vaidya is in the house. What's up, Sid? He's actually the one that put us together. He's the one who connected us.
He is the best.
He's quite the networker.
He is. He's got videos all over the place too.
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Yes.
The world is different.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to be different. And I don't know if it's ever going back to where it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
The importance of developing your online presence currently and from here on out. What do you say to people that are still on the fence and are like, I'm still scared, I'm still this, I'm still that, and just putting one excuse in front of the other to not get online and to really showcase themselves?
You are literally hurting nobody but yourself. It doesn't matter how great you are at what you do. If nobody knows they're there, nobody's paying you to do it. And the only way that you're going to push through that is to push your boundaries and push your envelope and take the risk and put a video up. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. Nobody is going to die. You are still going to be standing at the end of the day. If people don't like what you say, then take the feedback and do something else with it. But I can assure you this, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't try. Yeah. I mean, I know it's very basic, but that's the truth.
Well, I'm going to add a little bit of spice to what you just said. And I'm going to say that you're doing your audience and you're doing your customers an extreme disservice.
Absolutely.
By not getting online and really showcasing your expertise and the value that you can deliver to help them build. whatever it is that you're trying to help them with. When somebody told me that, I was like, whoa, that's when I really came out of my shell. And I was like, I need to put out more content. I need to put out more video, because there's such a wealth of knowledge in this big old noggin of mine. And it's not going to do any good if I hold it in and I die with it. You know what I mean? I want to leave this to my son. I want to leave this to all of you. I want to leave this to the people who I know really need me. And I look at it like that now, and that is completely, when I'm in one of those funks or I'm dragging feet, I just don't feel like doing it that day. Yeah. We all get there, right?
Oh God, yeah.
That's what pops into my head is you're doing yourself. This is selfish behavior, and you're doing a disservice to your audience by not going live, by not putting out this content, by not helping them.
That's 100%. You're spot on. Absolutely. If you don't do it, they're not going to know it's there, and you can't help.
Yeah. And the worst thing to fight, I think, of all the entrepreneurial battles is obscurity, because that's something that we can seriously control.
It's so easy. We have tools that we didn't have available to us even 2 and 3 years ago. There is literally no reason. You have access to 5 or 4K or even 8K on my new phone video, like at your fingertips, and then you just hit a button and boom, it goes wherever you want it to. There's literally no reason. Now I get it. Sometimes people want to shoot a 2-minute video, and like you said, it takes 2 hours and they still freaking hate it at the end. That you can work on. It should take 2 minutes, and you should be okay with the outcome, and it should get people to do what you want them to do, or help them in the way that you want to help them. But you're not, if you're not doing it, no is the answer.
Yeah. You're in a sea, or actually you're non-existent. That's what I tell people. You're not existent.
Yeah.
So this video and this podcast and stream was made specifically for the folks that may be struggling to get online right now, don't know where to start, or you may have some momentum behind you and you want to ramp it up a little bit. I feel like we gave some a little bit of some advanced stuff here to help you guys get content ideas and things like that. So before we leave, Kerry, I want you to share with the audience where people can learn more about you so they can follow your journey.
And it's just in time, because my biceps are burning and my hands are falling asleep. Literally, they're both tingling. I don't know how long I can hold this computer up. So my website's actually under construction right now, but there are a couple of videos you can watch on there. So it's kerrybarrettconsulting.com, or you can also email me, Kerry, Kerry, at Kerry Barrett, Barrett consulting.com. And of course, you can always find me on all the social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn daily, and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. I just started TikTok. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, but I'm there.
I'm such a what do you call it? I'm a viewer. I'm a lurker on TikTok. Right. I haven't posted anything on TikTok yet, but man,
we can do a duet.
That we should, but that damn platform's got me there for 30 minutes at a minimum because of all the ridiculous stuff that's on it.
Do you want to do? I know, like the plank challenge and like the dances. I can't do any of that crap.
The lip syncing is what gets me.
I know.
It is so funny. Fabulous. It is so funny. Anyway, Kerry, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope our live audience got some value out of this. Stick around. We have some really cool guests coming on the Brand Doctor podcast in the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited to share with you some of these amazing people. And again, hope you got some value out of this. Take care, guys. Stay safe, stay well, and keep pushing forward. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See ya.